Good morning, Hobby Hotline. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here on this Saturday morning, as always. But I'm Mike, Junk Wax Hero. I'm joined by Alex and Dr. Beckett. I want to start, first of all, by saying we're not here to attack Dr. Beckett. We are going to ask him some questions. Some of them might be difficult for him. I also want to say I have two Beckett magazines that have been autographed by him. I have met him a couple times, but we have never spoken other than when I had to ask somebody for his email address to ask him to come on my podcast 2.5 weeks ago. We are not friends. We're friendly because we've done Hobby Hotline together before. Just want to get that out of the way. Let's get started. I know that people are going to be asking questions in the comments, which we're excited to get to. But I also want to say, Dr. Beckett, thank you for coming on. I know it's been, I imagine, a difficult few weeks for you since the first podcast dropped.
I'm part of the Hobby Hotline crew. So this is my regular showing up, and for several years now, I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, good. So at what point did you realize that things had kind of started blowing up on the podcast, on that first podcast that you did?
Not that soon after it. I was really just minding my own business. I'm not that much of a social media guy. So I had an extended interview with Patrick and such that it was more than, so I edited to fit into two parts. And so after the second part came out, I started getting more feedback of, hey, people are taking this, in my opinion, the wrong way.
Yeah, and I had emailed you the day after the first one came out and said, there are a lot of people talking about this. Come on my podcast and talk about it. And you said, no, I've got a part 2 dropping tomorrow morning. And if people still have questions, they can come on a Hobby Hotline. And then you released a third one, and then you went on Jeff Wilson's podcast. And I think there's still a lot of people out there that have some questions for you. And I'm reading comments. I imagine you're not reading comments on YouTube. I get a lot of them. People are very, very upset with you. People believe that you are either shill bidding on your own cards or shill bidding your friends' cards up. So talk about that a little bit.
Now, where could that possibly be coming from? Again, I don't even, that I can't even comprehend. I've never shill bid. I don't even bid for the most part. And if I do bid, it's to bid to win. I'm the guy that works the dollar boxes. I'm the guy that didn't even collect at all for a couple of decades because I was doing price guides. So where is somebody that's saying I bid on something or shill even bid, much less shill bid?
Well, one of the things, and I'm going to read you a quote from that first podcast, and I had never heard the term defensive shill bidding before. You said, to me, defensive shilling, as opposed to manipulative offensive shilling, defensive shilling in the sense of bidding on your own stuff, it's not shilling if you intend to pay. I'm going to buy it for that. I'm not bidding it up. I'm saying at that price, count me in, I'll buy it back. And so a lot of people heard that as saying that you're buying it back and you're creating that new comp just so you can sell it again.
Well, number one, I've never done that. Number two, it's not illegal with live auctions, which I grew up in. The whole 20th century, before there were online auctions, you were allowed and encouraged to bid on your own stuff. And Jeremy Lee's got a whole appendix full of all of the traditional auctions still allow bidding on your own stuff if it's a live auction. If it's an online auction, which is mostly what's going on now, it is absolutely shill bidding. I also said in there that obey the rules, obey the laws, which I've always done. So, and I gave an example. The only example where I was even tempted to do that, Mike, was when an item, I very rarely put stuff up, but when I did, and they mislisted it. It's like it was like a refractor, but they didn't put a refractor. And I said, and then they wouldn't take it down. Okay. And I'm thinking I should just buy it back. But no, I can't do that because it's an online auction. That is shill bidding, whether it's defensive or offensive. It's wrong and it's illegal. I'm not denying that. But anybody that's my age remembers that all the live auctions, you could bid on your own stuff and you still can for the most part.
Yeah, so Cooterlev asks a great question here. And that's not a question. He just says it's not being illegal necessarily, or not being illegal doesn't make it ethical. And that was the point that I was going to make too, which is just because it's not illegal doesn't make it ethical or that you should do it. So I guess the first question is, have you ever bid on your own item or an associate's, a friend's or a coworker's item at all?
I still am flabbergasted that somebody would even accuse me of that. I've never done anything like that. I don't even, like I said, where is that coming from? You know, when I'm not a bidder in auctions. I'm not encouraging people to do that.
It just,
Besides, the unethical thing is an immoral thing is a little strange when the largest and most respected auction houses in the world encourage it and have allowed it for many years. The Sotheby's, the Christie's, and I believe Heritage is number 3. They expressly permit, and they have tons of attorneys. It's if it was unethical, they wouldn't be doing it. It is disclosed. It is part of the way auctions were done. It's not the way they're done online. I grant you that. That is unethical as well as illegal.
So 35 Auburn says you claimed on that first podcast that you reached out to Rick Probstein to bid on, not necessarily to bid on a consignment, but you asked if you could, and he said that it was okay to.
I mentioned no, that's not what he said. He looked at me like, why are you even asking? You know, you're not the owner of the item. You're not the consigner of the item. The only thing I can police is if it's coming from an IP address or, you know, so I'm not interested in bidding on, I'm not even interested in bidding on stuff. It's not the way I hobby.
But did you bid on that one item with Probstein?
No.
Okay. Would you think that that is ethical to bid on a friend's item just because it's too low?
If you're not connected, if it's not your, what can you not bid on something if it's not your friend? If you're the auction companies make it very clear, if you're an interested party, if you have any financial interest, if you work for the consigner, if you work for the owner, if you're a friend of the consigner. And in those cases, no.
Right.
So Mike, I have something saying on that.
Yeah.
So is it ethical or unethical if that card is your friend's, but you don't know it's your friend's and you're still bidding on it because you want to win it yourself, right? You know, what if your friend didn't reach out saying, hey, bid on my card, you know, because it's too low or whatever, but you're doing your searches and you find that card and you bid on it, but it just so happens to be your friend's card through the consignment company number. Like that, those situations probably happen a lot in this industry and everything. So what about that? You know, I've since I've been around for a long time, you know, I've had friends reach out, you know, the aspect of, hey, can you go watch my item? Don't say bid, but they say, can you go watch my item on eBay? Can you go watch my item here and hit that little button? Because we all know the more watches you get, somehow in the algorithm just bumps it up higher to get more eyes on it and everything. But yeah, so I think there's also circumstances where you might be bidding on a card that is your friend's anyways, because you want it and it's low enough for you to buy it yourself, but you just don't know it's theirs.
I wanted to have the conversation, and I've called it nuances, which everybody hates that. But you've brought up what is in effect a nuance, Alex, is if there's no intent, you're just bidding on something because you want to bid on it. There's nothing wrong with that. You're not trying to bid it up. Now, if you, for a friend, bid it up, you know it's your friend's card, and you bid it up with no intention to win, even if it's a low, no matter how benign it seems, and if it's defensive, that is shill bidding,
100%.
and that is illegal. But if you unbeknownst accidentally bid on your friend's card or bid on your friend's card in order to win it, and to win it at the lowest price you can win, the problem with shill bidding is the shill bidding that is the worst form of shill bidding. They're not trying to win. They're trying to come in second.
Right.
And so that's why a pattern can be established. These aren't one-off criminals. These aren't isolated instances. This is a scheme. There are groups that do this, and they somehow have a way to come in second, drive it up, and then some other person takes it. So, and I believe that is discoverable. That's all I'm trying. Defensive on the low end, early bids, things like that. That's not the huge problem. It's still shill bidding. It's still wrong, but it's really hard to detect.
So
It's the bidding that goes above, and again, a lot of this stuff's well below the reserves, which nobody likes reserves, but a reserves is a legal way for an auction company to bid on your behalf as the owner or the consignor.
yeah.
I don't like that either. But again, I can not like something, but it's not unethical. It's just in the rules.
So whose idea was it? Did you reach out to Patrick Ryan independently, or did he reach out to you to come on the podcast? How did that work? Or was he already scheduled and that happened?
No, I reached out to him.
Was your intent to kind of defend him, or was your intent, what was your intent when you asked him on?
I didn't think he needed defending as much as I thought the punishment was not fitting the crime of the facts that I had heard and some of the piling on that I'd heard in some other podcasts. And I thought, I want to get to the bottom of this as much as I can. And I'd like to have that as a jumping off position to talk about shill bidding, because I think it's a problem in the industry and nobody's talking about it. And I think there are different schemes and things that some are worse than others. I want to get rid of all of it, Mike.
Yeah. Did you take note that he changed his story? Or it seemed to me, at least, and I'm not fully familiar with everything that happened with the Patrick Ryan thing, so pardon me here if I get this wrong, but I believe his first defense before he went on your podcast was that he intended to watch it, and that was why he had the bid, and it was a mistake. But then on yours, didn't he come out and say something completely different, that he bid? I don't remember the exact combo, but he changed his story on your podcast. Did you note that at all?
He had changed his story before he was on my podcast. I was aware of that. And I was trying to give him a chance. Like I said, I wanted to use it as a springboard to talk about the problem of shill bidding in the industry.
So I'm looking at the comments here. Somebody, Carlos, did a video, because I'm Carlos, YouTuber. He had Dan of Dan's Vintage Baseball PC on. And Carlos had, I think, what is probably the best summarization, which is, thou shalt not bid on your own cards, let's say. And I think that extends to, you shouldn't bid on anybody else's cards just to bid them up. Would you agree with that?
I would agree. That's shill bidding. If you're bidding on somebody's cards, whether you know them or not, if you're bidding it up to bid it up,
True.
It could be because you have a similar card.
Right.
It is wrong to bid without the intention to win. But again, on the low end, early stages, it seems like it's not that bad. I'm not saying it's not that bad. It's bad and it's wrong and it's illegal, but it's not as bad as bidding something way up. That's what's going on. That's what's messing up the comps.
Yep.
Can we put Mike Ham's comment up? Because I think Mike Ham just asked the best question, the best segue here. And Greg of Midlife Cards did a 3-part series this week of what could fix these issues. What are the next steps we should do? And I'd love to hear your perspective on this.
Mine? Well, I mean, basically, I'm a PhD statistician. I mean, this is a big data problem. I am aware that the auction companies have information that they don't really want to share with each other or with the world. But if they did their own deep dive into who's winning, who's coming in second, who's recurrently bidding on certain people, I believe there are patterns in the data that could be established even within one auction company. And that's enough right there to get the ball going. And perhaps to strike fear. There is no deterrent for these shill bidders. Okay. A greater thing, which I don't know if he's asking about that, would be cooperation within the industry of more than one auction platform to come together and say, let's together compare our notes, or get Price Waterhouse or somebody to look at and see who's bidding, and if they're doing the same kind of thing in both. Again, I believe the pattern, again, it's circumstantial, but it's very strong circumstantial evidence if somebody's always coming second on their friend's items, or even if it's not their friend, it could be a friend of a friend. It's hard to detect those things, but I believe it's detectable.
Okay. Mike Petty put up a comment, and everybody's asking for me to put it up here, or whoever's putting up comments. And I'm going to read the quote. I have the actual quote here that I wrote down this morning. He said, "My friends, we've bid on one another's items just to protect them because we're not going to let some other idiot get a really, really good deal." And he has said since then that there was an audio cutout in the podcast that prevented us from hearing him saying that he's received Instagram messages from people. Can you confirm that?
First of all, that quote is not correct.
Well, the quote that Mike Petty put up there isn't quite correct, but the quote that I just read is verbatim.
Well, let me deal with the first one. The first one is that when I was on with Patrick, if he had said that he and his friend bid up items so some other idiot doesn't get a good deal, if he had said that exact word, I wouldn't have jumped down his throat necessarily, but I would absolutely say, Patrick, wait a minute. Okay. He didn't say that. He said he had friends that did that. That's a very different thing, that he's aware of that going on. And that was their sentiment.
I listened to it. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was there. He didn't say he did it. He said he had some friends that did that. He didn't say he did it with them. If he would have, I would have recoiled.
Because I listened to it 3 times this morning, and I made sure that I took this down correctly. There does appear to be a clip out right before, like his audio cut out. I don't know how long that would have been. I don't know if it's long enough for him to have said, "I've received Instagram messages from people who have said," which is what he says he said. But it is my friends, we've bid on one another's items just to protect them because we're not going to let some other idiot get a really good deal. And that's at about the 8-minute mark on the first podcast.
That's not what I heard him say. He didn't say we bid on him. He said what I believe is common knowledge, that there are people out there that bid on items and they have that motivation.
So you would definitely not agree with him if he had said that.
I would have freaked out. I would have freaked out. Why are you guys thinking I know what shill bidding is. In fact, I know what shill bidding is better than most people because I've been in the industry longer than most people. But I have the old version of what shill bidding is, and now the new version of shill bidding is much stricter. I've abided by the strictest of standards.
Yeah,
and I would have freaked out if Patrick would have said that he was bidding, because that would completely turn upside down what he had said about this being an accident.
Yeah. Now, and Sam Hill, great commenter, says, "I guess we should have had the audio ready to play for him." And I wish that I did, because he definitely said that. And again, he says that it's taken out of context, that there was a clip out. I want to be clear about that. But that and the defensive shill bidding are the two things that thousands of people are talking about, that it's in comments anytime any video comes out about this. Those are the two things that people mention: the defensive shill bidding and Patrick Ryan saying, we don't want to let some other idiot get a really, really good deal.
He didn't say we. He was quoting a sentiment from people that he was aware of. Like I said, guys, I wouldn't have let him get away with that. If he said we did this, I'd say, Patrick, you're incriminating yourself. That is illegal.
So you're saying the fact that he didn't say we, but are you still saying that he actually did say in that same context, though, that he's talked about, not letting idiots, get a good deal?
He was saying that's what they said, but he may think that as well. He could speak for himself. But if he had said that he was part of that, I would not have let that stand. He did not say that. Again, that would be a smoking gun.
So I want to put up Penguins Chronicles at 11:20 asked, would you be willing to release the entire unedited audio of the conversation. And I don't know if that will work, because if there truly was an audio cutout, but that is a good question.
I would be, but again, Patrick, in the laws are you can't record a conversation and then release it without both parties' consent. There was one part in there that had to do with fanatics and not any part of this, that he said, I don't want that to be included. And I said, well, I've already edited, and I don't believe that's even in there anyway. He was talking about the auction process, and Acquire and Fanatics. He didn't want something that would be disparaging. It wasn't incriminating. It was just, yeah.
Orlando asks, does Dr. Beckett think Patrick Ryan bidding on his own card was a mistake?
Well, he absolutely. Oh, wait a minute. Do I think that he bid on his own card and it was a mistake?
Right. Or did he do it on purpose?
Do I believe that he said it was a mistake, then it was a mistake?
Do you believe that it truly was a mistake?
I'm hoping it was a mistake. I mean, I want to believe him. And if I hear other disconfirming evidence, I will consider that. But he's a guy that bids on a lot of things. So if I thought he was a serial shill bidder, or even intentional shill bidder, even one time, I wouldn't have entered into this. Because then the punishment does fit the crime. That was my first thing. I thought, I've got a guy that I know, that I've got a close friend that vouches for him, and he's just getting blasted. And if really all he did was make a mistake and accidentally bid on his own item, then what's going on here? So let's. And again, it wasn't to defend him as much as just to figure out what's going on. Shill bidding is insidious.
So here's a good question up on the screen here. I don't know if you know, but Neo of Neo's Cards and Comics removed his video that talked about this podcast, and he said that a third party contacted him and basically told him to remove it. Were you a part of that, is what the question is?
I was zero part of that. I've had no contact with Patrick or anybody really about. I'm not threatening anybody, even though I'm the one that's being defamed, it seemed like. But no, you can't. It's whack-a-mole, Mike. It's whack-a-mole. There's all people coming out and saying things, and no, I have nothing to do with that. That's not the way how I roll. I've been a public figure for 50 years. I mean, come on.
So he used Acquire as an intermediary, right, for his purchase. And I had never heard of Acquire before. I don't know if this has been really good publicity for Acquire or really bad. Hard to tell sometimes. What is your take on these intermediaries? What is the purpose of them?
Well, it's almost an intermediary to an intermediary. So right. I'm not sure about that. I've used Probstein for my own stuff. I've used PWCC a long time ago for my own stuff. Not big giant items or anything like that, but just testing them out and stuff like that. So I don't want to say I'm suspicious, because that's not fair, but I don't, and I'm aware of the connection you're saying, and I stayed away from that in the podcast that we're talking about, because I think that can be defamatory. But when there's suspicious activity, there ought to be investigation. And I have no problem with people digging deeper.
John Newman, yep, great question here on the screen. Has your opinion on Patrick Ryan changed post-interview? And he also wished you would have called him on calling fellow hobbyists idiots.
Okay. I was there when the fellow idiot, the first reference for that was when he said that he had friends that he was aware of that said they didn't want these other idiots to get it. So that's an unfortunate choice of words. The first time I heard, I thought, well, he's just repeating what they've said. Has my opinion of Patrick changed? I want to think the best of people, but I don't. I think there's a lot going on here. I surely don't have the whole story. I'm busy trying to not defend, but more explain what I have said. And you keep coming at me of things Patrick said, and don't you want to know what I think?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm asking you is what do you think about them?
About I don't think they're idiots. I think it's unfortunate. Anybody that gets caught in a shill scheme, again, not on the low end, but on the high end, is not an idiot as much as they have been duped. They have been duped into paying a higher price than they should have because of the shill activity, especially in the after hours bidding.
Okay. I do want to point out that Alan from Boston Fan has said a comment at 11:26. He says before that one, he's re-listening to Dr. Beckett's podcast, and honestly, it sounds like Patrick Ryan is saying a number of people came to me and say, my friends, we bid on one another's items. It comes up with closed captioning, which I don't hear that when I listen to it. I listened to it several times this morning. So it's interesting that closed captioning says that. But that is actually what he claims he said too. So maybe that's why you don't recall it, because he...
No. This is pretty close to what was said, but it's not me and my friends bidding on other people's items. It's that he's aware of people that say that they have friend groups that bid on others' items. That's happening. It's not that he's so astute that he knows that's happening. It's obvious it's happening. Yeah. Those are the shill bidding schemes that are out there. Well, I'm not privy to that, but in his circles, he's aware of that.
It's hard for, honestly, like a lot of his trustworthiness and his reputation kind of went out the window as soon as he posted that first picture on social media saying that he was outbid. Right, that's what this whole thing spinned off of. Correct. Like he was showing off his card that was being auctioned, and literally it said you've been outbid. And then of course that got taken down, and he put up apology, then that got taken down, and then you got roped in. So it's all spooled from that. Do you feel like he's part of these groups too? Like, I mean, show it right there.
I have no evidence that he is. Again, he's a reasonably wealthy guy who is making a lot of bids and is very social media out there, Instagram and all that stuff. And so that's not me, but that's him. So he's clearly aware of that. And the whole point about shill bidding is that it's a scheme. And again, people didn't like it when I talked about smart criminals, but smart criminals don't bid on their own stuff. They get other people to do it. And I just say it one more time. If Patrick had said that he's part of a friend group that does that, he would lose all credibility and deserve the full punishment of whatever is meted out to him, because that is a shill bidding scheme. But he told me, and again, nobody negated this, that he had his screenshot that he had was up for 18 hours before anybody noticed.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then, that lends credence to the accidental thing.
So 35 Auburn does confirm what Alan put up, which is that, I don't remember where it was here, but, here it is. A number of people can say, my friends, we bid on one another's items just to protect them because we're not going to let some other idiot get a really good deal. So it sounds like the audio cut out and the closed captioning somehow captures the real thing. I don't know how that works, but I want to put up another comment here.
Wait, the real thing. I was there. He
right.
did not say.
And they are confirming that for you. That's what this comment is. It's validating what you're saying.
I was there, guys. I'm not trying to be clever or dishonest or anything. I'm not trying to let Patrick off the hook or throw him under the bus. He needs to defend himself and speak for himself. But that particular quote, yeah, he's aware of that going on, and anybody ought to be aware of it and be wise to what's going on.
At 11:28, Skep One Productions said, "If someone were guilty, would they come on here and talk about this stuff? Do you guys understand the guts it takes to do this? Where are all the other cowards that won't talk about it?" And I think we do have to say thank you, Dr. Beckett, for coming on here. It does take guts, as this person said, to come on here knowing that everybody is up in arms over this. So thank you.
I really got nothing to hide, guys. I mean, I'd really like to further the conversation about shill bidding. I'm a lifer and improve the hobby. And there are bad actors out there. I need more evidence to say Patrick Ryan is one of them. If he is, then he needs to be excommunicated.
Well, here's a comment from TJ's Online. 11:29, 2 weeks before the auction, Patrick mentioned getting rid of his famous 100 card box by selling the 1986 Fleer Michael Jordan sticker, and that card was shown. So he knew the card was his, TJ's Online says. So 2 weeks before the auction, Patrick showed that he was selling that card, and then he 2 weeks later showed that he had bid on it. And I think the tie there is that he must have known that he was bidding on his own card. What do you think about that?
I wouldn't say he must have known. I would say he should have known.
Should have known.
It's a very difference. Yeah. He should have known, but this is a guy that's bidding across the board at a bunch of items. So it's not the way I hobby, but I treated him as innocent until proven guilty. And if he's only made one mistake, then that's one thing. If he's show me the other mistakes that he's made. If he's made several mistakes like this, then he loses the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, a lot of people think the assumption is it the one mistake, or is it the only time he got caught? And I think that's a lot of what people are just thinking in their heads.
Well, I would say that if he's done it more than once, there ought to be a way to figure out if he's not gotten caught. And I think he's had a lot of bidding activity. He's won a lot of stuff. He's bragging about what he's won. The shill bidders don't brag about what they've won. They want to come in second. They just want to drive up the price. It's clandestine. Patrick is out there. That's again what he was pointing out. Is it why am I talking about it if I'm a shill bidder? If it's an accident, and I'm saying, well, if it's an accident, let's talk about how we can further the conversation so that people are aware of what shill bidding really is. And it's not as simple as just bidding on your own stuff. In fact, the shill bidders, they would not do it that way. You would have a scheme. You would have somebody do it for you.
TJ is Online again asks, what if he shill bid? What if he did it to Jeremy Lee's 1914 Cracker Jack Shoeless Joe Jackson? Which that's a valid question.
That's a valid question, and it could be investigated.
Yeah.
And so you could find out. I don't know if you'd need a subpoena or something or some request. I don't know that he's under indictment, but Jeremy Lee bid that, was going back and forth with somebody, and that at one point had been Patrick's card. I don't know if Patrick was the consigner, but
I believe I've heard he was.
But and I actually don't have a connection, but I knew one of the original owners of that card was a close friend of mine again, long time ago, and I knew then the second owner. I knew that guy too.
According
Jeremy,
to
I would feel horrible for Jeremy He's a good friend. He's been
Yeah.
around. But again, all these guys we're talking about are they're hobby veterans, and they're young enough to be my sons. Okay, so Jeremy, that would be mortifying if he had been bid up by
Right.
anybody. Okay, not just Patrick or Patrick's friend, but anybody that's bidding without the intent to win, but to bid it up so that some other dupe, I won't say idiot, but some other person, because Jeremy's not an idiot, but what is so insidious, it's using the passion, the natural passion of this hobby against, again, the most passionate collectors who are willing to pay almost whatever it takes. They're the ones being duped into paying more than what they should. And I find that reprehensible.
So another good question that was just up a second ago, Penguins Chronicles 1134. Would you encourage Patrick to show his bidding history in previous auctions to clear his name?
He may choose to do that. I don't think he's taking advice from me anymore. If I even was trying to defend him, which I wasn't, I've done a really poor job.
So Kuderlev again says at 11:35. There are so many comments; it's impossible to keep up with it. So I'm sorry to everybody here, as I'm trying to moderate this and also listen. I'm trying to keep up with this. He says,
maybe it's time to say thank you to you, Mike, for trying to keep this civil. I appreciate it.
"Oh no, not at all." Kuderlev, who is a great commenter. He who can say he was done more for this hobby than Dr. Beckett can cast the first stone. I'm trying to be fair here because there are a lot of negative comments, and we're putting the negative comments up and we're asking the negative questions. But there's also some people in here who are very positive about you too.
No, well, let me just respond to say that I appreciate the comment, but if I've done something wrong, then cast the first stone. I believe I'm innocent of these charges, but it doesn't mean I've had a spotless life. But generally, I try to conduct myself in ways that wouldn't embarrass my mother or my father, my grandmother, my wife, my friends. I'm not out there committing crimes. And so again, if I've done something wrong or even said something wrong, throw a stone. And let me, don't stone me to death, but just give me an opportunity to respond. And it may be a misunderstanding. It may be something I misspoke, but just, let's get it out there. And then you can start throwing stones. But people are throwing stones that didn't even listen to the episode.
Mookie Chilson, the legend. Mookie Chilson asked, 1136, what do you think of the Chris Hoge idea of an independent rating system for auction houses, like Reports does for cars, etc.?
Again, people are accusing me here of underthinking, and I'm an overthinker, okay? So Chris Hoge's idea sounds good, an independent rating system, but the problem is if you have Auction House A that is really tough on shill bidders, makes a really deep examination of anybody that's bidding, and Auction House B is lenient, just says, we just check them out and all that stuff. Auction House B will get higher prices than Auction House A. And so it will backfire on what Chris is saying, is that the auction houses that run the tightest ship will get the lowest prices.
But if you have an independent...
But I like the idea in principle.
If you have an independent rating system and one auction house gets lower bids, lower prices because they are very against it, wouldn't that also, shouldn't it drive the industry towards that auction house and cause those other shill bid friendly auction houses to say, oh, we need to change because we're an F on this independent rating system because we allow shill bidding?
Again, in principle, that sounds great. It's just human nature. I'm not so sure, but I like the concept. It's also going to be difficult to enforce. The people that get Fs, it's like the NFL players that are grading their organizations. They're the NFL team owners that got the Fs are questioning the methodology and all that, and they feel like they've been defamed. And so it's in a perfect world, what Hoj is saying, I would be in favor of it. In fact, I'd be in favor of it for sure, because I think people ought to be informed bidders. But don't think that means people are going to flock to the toughest auction houses.
Alex, what do you think?
I agree with people should be informed of the bidders, like not hide who's making the bids, help keep track and everything. I also, look at the different auction houses, like, for example, like Golden, right? They take bids independently. You're not going on and clicking a button. You actually have to be peer approved on your bids and everything else to get through, compared to those other auction houses that aren't. So maybe those prices are skewed depending on the difference between the few different ones, and people are flocking to these other ones because their friends know that they're up there, and they want to sell this card for a certain amount because they might have a card that's the same, so they'll bid it up and everything. But I think it's the whole transparency aspect is always been the thing that I've focused on everything in this industry, and knowing who else is bidding, when they're bidding and stuff, is I think is one of the first routes that these auction houses can go, depending on what the privacy laws are. We have to remember, sharing this stuff between auction houses and everything else, like what laws are they breaking because they're giving out other people's information. So getting around that in aspect, I'm not a lawyer, I don't know. So in that aspect, I'd like to see more transparency between who's bidding on what at all times.
Thank you. So John Newman, again, 1139, said his personal belief is it's hard to bid on your own card without knowing it's yours, especially graded ones. He's had thousands of cards on multiple platforms and never bid on one of his own by accident. I think that's a great point, especially if I don't know how many Patrick Ryan had, but yeah.
I respect John. I respect his opinion, but if this is one time that Patrick bid on something that happened to be his own thing because he didn't recognize it, again, if it's one time, that could happen. I've heard from a lot of people that said they've accidentally bid on their own items. So that's not. But this is a high profile thing, and like I said, if it's a one-off, the shill bidders that I'm worried about are not one-off. So Patrick, there should be a trail. There should be a trail that could be followed. And if that trail leads to other nefarious activity, then he's guilty of being a serial shill bidder rather than an accidental shill bidder. A one-time accidental shill bidder, to my knowledge, anyway.
I'm 4 minutes behind comments. So at 1140, Black Box Hobby said, since intent is impossible to prove, is it not a good idea to prevent employees and associates from bidding on items? Dr. Beckett was adamant Teapot should be allowed to bid on Jeff's items. And I know what you were saying, because I watched that this morning as well as the day it came out, which is if Teapot wants the card that Jeff Wilson is selling, he should bid on it. But he shouldn't bid on it if Jeff tells him to, hey, go bid up my card. Is that what you were trying to say?
Well, intent really doesn't come up until there's a lawsuit. You say, what are you doing? You're shill bidding on the face of it because you bid on your employer's card. And he would say, no, I'm well established. I won the card, or I bid as much as I could because I'm a noted player collector of that guy. So intent, I mean, he can't, intent comes up when there's an accusation, and you could say, I intended to win. But if Teapot was bidding up Jeff's auctions, again, he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do it. And not only that, if Teapot really, again, what I'm concerned about, guys, the nuance here is that what the easy workaround for Teapot is to get his wife or his brother, not his wife because she'd have the same name, but a brother-in-law or a neighbor to buy it. And again, to me, that's a scheme. I don't want to have a scheme. The natural thing is that Teapot, it's not his card. He has no real direct financial gain from that, even though his boss is perhaps the owner or perhaps the consignor.
And we should be clear here that has not happened. This is just
And
theoretical.
I'm sure that's not
Hypothetical.
happened.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying, but if it did happen, to me, that is not shill bidding. But if Teapot had a pattern of bidding, even putting in qualifying bids that's shill bidding. And that's, again, very defensive, but it's still shill bidding. It's still wrong. And Teapot can't point to any intent that has anything other than driving up the price without wanting to buy it.
Sammy Thunder at 1142 makes a good point. Shill bidding has been going on forever. It's just been sitting dormant. And now that it's taken focus, it's time for some major changes to take place. And so you did get this discussion out there, which was your original intent, even though you've taken some
That
significant.
absolutely was my original intent, but not
You've
to be
taken.
the focal point.
You've taken some significant hits.
And
So
one other comment that I saw is that I'm not trying to throw Teapot under the bus.
right, yeah, no,
He
we're
quoted the episode I listened to that I was responding to Jeff about was the episode they did where Teapot brought up that he wouldn't bid, and the nightmare that he had that Jeff would accidentally bid on his own items. I was just responding to that with Jeff.
Yeah, that's right. Somebody mentions the Rick Probstein new auction site, Snipe. Do you have any comments on everything that's happened? Have you followed what's happened with Snipe this week?
A little bit. I'm I don't believe Rick is Rick Shilstein. I think he's a straight shooter. I think he's built a great business. I think the eBay fees, after a while, you're thinking, so I don't believe he left eBay in bad standing. That's just my opinion based on, but starting his own thing is trickier. I mean, I built a business. It is not a no-brainer to build a bigger business. And he had a jump start. And so the fact that he's having hiccups is not a big surprise.
Alex, what do you think about the Snipe situation this week?
I don't think, again, stuff that's been out all over the interwebs and stuff, and Twitter and the pictures, showing bid histories and I mean even credit cards and stuff. We can't truthfully say that that's legit documents. Someone can alternate and everything else, but it doesn't look good. I mean, there's a reason why it hasn't, the site's not up right now, right? It's still down and everything because of whatever happened and stuff like. But it's not looking good. And I haven't seen anything where he's made a comment about it or said. But
yeah,
guys, it's hard to make comments when things are in flux like that. And if you think that he's a bad actor, then you're going to have malintent that you ascribe to him, which I think he may have been overwhelmed with bids because people he has some things in the way he's structured his platform that are appealing that eBay cannot do because eBay is so huge.
Yeah, but if the pictures are correct of the bid history that was leaked, right? That was the breached, showing that his own accounts was bidding on the same items like 24 plus times, right? That's not good. That's not good optics at all. And of course, everyone sees the first thing, and it's hard to get that out of your brain once you see it when moving forward with stuff like this. But Rick has had a long running past of people thinking that he's shilling his own auctions anyways. Yep. And so this just adds to that fuel to that fire. And I mean, it's not good. Who knows how long? I know there's a couple, agencies out there, people out there on social media thinking that he'll never show his face again. It's just, this is what his business is. It's hard for you to just do this, start this up, and then just walk away. So I'm excited to see, where this goes and what actually is truthful and what's not.
Well, I'm interested to see too. Again, maybe we need to switch back to punching on me because, I'm at least here to defend myself. Rick, yeah. I do not know him to be a dishonorable guy, and I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt until such time as it is not the case. Okay. So, but he's not here to defend himself. All I know is when you start a large enterprise, stuff can happen. Scammers could have swarmed him. I don't know. Shill bidders could have swarmed him to try to see if he had protections. I don't know what's going on there, and I obviously can't. I can barely speak for myself. I can't speak.
All right, Mike, I've seen it a few times in the comments. People have asked who I am. I am part of the Hobby Hotline. I'm just one of the usually 3 individuals that come on weekly, not just specifically for this episode with Dr. Beckett. I am part of the whole Hobby Hotline crew, and I just so happen to be in this episode during this time frame where majority talk is done by Dr. Beckett, not myself.
Sorry, Alex.
No, it's fine. That's fine.
I feel badly. Hopefully, if Alex isn't on every week, maybe they can get him back in next week to have more to say.
I was on like 3 months in a row. Like this is like the 3rd month in a row.
The things you've said have been smart, so I think you should be on more.
Hey, people like the beard, so that's all I care about.
Yeah. So, to your point, Dr. Beckett, if Rick Probstein wants to come on and talk, I'd be happy to talk to him either here or on my podcast and ask him questions about what's happening with his snipe platform, where a lot of people are saying that the back end of it has been exposed and appear to show, and I'm using appear to show because there are some people who are being very fair to him, and rightly so at this point, that there are accounts tied to him that are shill bidding things up. And there are even Dan the Card Man, who is really good at this, came out and said he believes that somebody has attacked Snipe and making it look like Probstein is shill bidding. And we don't know. But it looks bad. We have to acknowledge that everything looks bad with the auction house going down and then all of that coming out.
Well, I agree with you, Mike. I think he ought to be able to speak for himself. And if you get him on your program or he's on some other program, he ought to, and it ought to be asking the tough questions. It's not whitewashing to hear somebody out. Now you can challenge. If you hear something that doesn't sound right, then you would challenge it.
Yep. Oh, thank you, Rich. I appreciate that. Calm, soothing voice. Yes, I appreciate that. This is an explosive topic. And, when I emailed you that second day, I got the sense that you didn't quite know how big this was going to be. And you said, yeah, I'll answer questions on November 22nd. And I texted Theo and said, I guess I'm going to be on Hobby Hotline. He said, great. So I appreciate you coming on and doing this and facing I don't know how many people we had in the comments, how many people we had live, but I'm guessing it's a lot based on the lively comments.
Yeah. The other part of that is that somewhere in there, maybe certainly before you contacted me, and I appreciated that because most people just attacked me, didn't contact me, but they just attacked me, and not directly, but Rich Klein had either texted me and he said, hey, there's the Hobby Hotline people are, I don't know if he said upset about what you said about shill bidding, defensive shill bidding and stuff like that. And they're frustrated. So that planted the seed that, if my, not that everybody's my fan, but the sort of my tribe, I've been on Hobby Hotline since pretty much the beginning. So I'm here. I've done all these AMAs, so I'm not hiding out or anything like that. And I thought, well, if even the Hobby Hotline crew is questioning what I said or why I said it, then I really want to address it there. And so when you mentioned it, I thought, well, and I wasn't thinking it was as big as it was. I completely underestimated. I was the one that was shill shocked.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wonder if you had come out and said something.
No idea.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have helped. It wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't have mattered. The train had left the station, and everything that you're saying, you're going to be accused of being too soft on me.
Right.
Because there's all this piling on.
Yeah. Yep, for sure. Any last thoughts from either of you? Alex, Dr. Beckett? I know we're kind of right at that end point here.
No, like majority of people are saying in the chat, we appreciate you coming on here, Dr. Beckett, and speaking your mind, answering some questions that came across the chat. And I agree, Mike, you're a great host for this week. On the Hobby Hotline, for individuals to give them a broader perspective, we have a certain number of engineers that sit in that host position, and the other two are just here to chat. Talk about the topics and everything else. Like I said, that's the reason why I'm here. Just so happens that this was my week, and this was planned well before this happened. Like this trio was already planned before all this went down. So we just stuck with it. I mean, they could have tapped in someone else instead of me or whatever, but I'm honored to be here and talking with you, Dr. Beckett, and of course Mike. You did a great job, and can't wait for the next one, truthfully.
Well, if you're ending it, it's not me ending it. So I'm here to answer any questions.
Yeah.
I don't want to look like I'm not bailing on this, although I don't want to keep talking about it if I can help it, because I'm not Johnny One Note. I've got insights about a lot of things and lots of other things about the bidding process and how to fix it and all that. But so I'm like I said, I'm a lifer. I'm a public person. Doesn't mean it doesn't hurt when people attack your character, but I'm an old guy now.
Yep. Well, thank you again. And to be clear, I am ending this. He is here. I just feel like the same questions keep coming up and up and up and up, and we've asked pretty much everything that I think could be asked and has value. So thank you to all the commenters. This was great. And to Alex and Dr. Beckett.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Mike. And thanks, commenters, too.